Welcome to Conversations on the Edge with Tom and TJ, where Generation X and Millennial talk about restoration, the Edge version 3, and the world.
All right, everybody. Welcome to our latest podcast. And we're joined here today with Javi. It's Tom and Javi today on my porch here in Satellite Beach, Florida. It is a beautiful day today. It was raining all morning, but it cleared off when the universe said, Javi and Tom, we're going to be talking. We're going to have a nice afternoon on the porch. And so we're up here in beautiful Satellite Beach. Javi, it's great to see you, my friend.
Oh, God, such a pleasure to be here. What a day.
And so we always start off with something fun, exciting, that's not related to work and all of that. So, Javi, you're my guest. So it's you. What's something fun, exciting that's going on in your world that you want to tell everybody about?
You know, being here, number one, in Florida, especially here in Tom's neck of the woods and Satellite, Cocoa Beach area, during Daytona Bike Week of all times, you know, Tom and I have been talking about, you know, how we were going to present this and be together today and just reminisce, you know, about our careers and our life and our personal and our family and everything else. And it's just come together to be such a blessing to be here and share with everyone. But, you know, I will say this, you know, I travel all over the country and to be here today at Tom's place and here filming this is man, it means a lot. It means a lot, you know, at this point in my career. And you know, I was talking to my wife this morning. She asked me what I was going to be doing today. And, you know, just to be able to share a little piece of what's going on, you know, this year means so much to me. And as we piece it together, number one is in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be 60 years old. In 2 months.
Happy birthday.
In 2 months, Tom and I will be celebrating 40 years in the industry. They call that the Ruby. So we'll actually celebrate 4 decades of being in the restoration industry. And, you know, for the people that know me very well, you know, I've got another 12-year accomplishment that means a lot, you know, and that was, you know, as far as my celebration of what means most, and that's my sobriety. So, again, you know, family, friends, you know, where we're at in the industry today, being in Florida, we're in conference season. And, you know, this was one of my main stops on my schedule to be here and spend some time with Tom just to kind of strategize in this last leg of our career. And it's just wonderful. Like Tom said, you know, the rain, the clouds broke. Now we're here and we're sharing our time with you guys. And we're going to come up with some good stuff to talk about today.
Very good. I'm also a Pisces baby, or a summer baby. Our parents were busy in the month of August. You know, summer, you know, the suntans, you know, the tan lines and all that kind of stuff. You create lots of babies in August. And so a lot of March babies. Mine's on March 11th. And so is that already almost next week?
Next week. Yeah. Yeah. Hey. And I'll be on the 21st. I'll follow you by about 10 days.
Man, I'll tell you what, and for all of you out there that hear all those old people telling you life goes by fast, it does. So don't mess around. Make sure you enjoy it. And that's my fun and exciting thing is I get to sit here today with Javi, and we're going to talk about just, you know, our careers. You know, this in May, both of us will be at our 40-year mark. And if anybody had ever asked me back when I was 26 years old, getting started in this industry, or actually 25-ish, whatever the math is, I don't know. I don't care anymore. Once you get past 40, it don't matter. And so I would have never thought that I would be in this industry this long. But I gotta tell you, and everybody that's out there that is in the restoration world, you know what we're talking about. You know how you feel about the industry. As much as, you know, there's all those things that piss us off, there's also so many good things, good relationships, the camaraderie when you're out on the projects, the fun that you have, all the different cities that you go to, all the different people that you help out with our services. And then you get to come home and share all that with your family and everything. And so I've been here in Brevard County, Cocoa Beach, and Satellite Beach now for 32 years. So for a good portion, well, the majority of my career has been here in Florida. And the reason why I stayed here in this part of Florida too is because it's very relaxing. It's very laid back. We're sitting out here on the upstairs porch, outside, beautiful day under the umbrella, nothing to complain about at all. And that's that life balance. I think, Javi, that's one of the main things you got to have in this business is some type of life balance to when we come home, you can just take that chill pill and just be like, man,
compressed.
You have to have it. This beach, I've been on this beach now for 32 years, and this is my little, where I chill and get ready for the next one. Javi, what's kept you, balanced? What's kept you in the?
It's funny that you say that because, again, we put in a lot of years, a lot of time, made a lot of sacrifices, and that comes at a cost. And if you don't have a balance, and I speak with a lot of people in the industry, it seems like even when you have your own business and you have a lot of employees, you wear that hat to be able to be that HR department and be there for your people, and not to say that I can actually say that my life was always, on a pink cloud, it comes with a lot of learning, and it wasn't until probably I hit my 40s when I realized that, without balance, you're either going to love your job or you're going to hate it. You've got to have that balance, both when you're out in the field and when you get back home to decompress and hit that reset button. That reset button has a lot to do with what's going on out there, and to have a good significant other, your partner, your friends, your family at home, that when you do come to hit that reset button and find that balance, that it's everyone's got to be in sync and work with you. They have to understand that you're out there and you're giving it your all, and when you come home, you have to have that the surround yourself with that love and understanding that, you're coming home to hit that reset button. You're not coming home to put more pressure and to pay a price for being gone.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I've got the best wife, for myself and for who I am as a person and who we are as a couple, that we have that balance to where when I'm gone, she understands. My kids, always had that understanding. Dad's got to go to work. I missed a lot of Christmases, a lot of birthdays, and,
Yep.
Now them as adults, they don't hold resentments, that they're not angry that I wasn't there for them, and I'm able to give back now to where me having that balance, means a lot more to the loved ones and the people that did understand it. Now, I got to throw this in there too, but this is wife number 4. So there were 3 wives that weren't part of my balance, Now I've been with my wife, Cindy, now going on 12 years, and her and I waited a while and I had to go out and test the waters with the wrong significant other, but I have the right one now, and we figure things out together, and that means a lot. If I'm going to tell anybody anything, if you're going to choose this career chose me. I didn't choose this career. The restoration and the cleaning. I went in while I was in college. I went in and took a part-time job cleaning carpet back in 1986, and now here I am 40 years later, and I'm still Still doing the same thing, but I love it. I love everything I do. And in my career, if there would have been anything I could have changed, it wouldn't be much, because I learned from a lot of hard learned lessons. I learned a lot, and I'm able to pass those things on. So, today's a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for me, relationship wise, we won't talk about relationships. We've had a lot of fun. It was a lot of great people, and, along the way, it's just been, an amazing, it's very blessed when I started in this industry to have worked with some of the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so back in the 80s, restoration was much different. And so there weren't as many restoration companies. In fact, there was probably less than a quarter of the restoration companies that there are right now. And less than that in large loss. And so back when I started, there were 2 large loss restoration companies that did national work. 2. And think about that.
Yeah.
Now they're everywhere, and I was blessed because there was so much talent on each on those companies, and we were competing against each other. One was BMS Cat, the other one was an offshoot of BMS Cat, MF Bank, the restoration company, and that's where I started in this industry, and I got to work with icons like Joey Taylor, Bill Boss, Brad Key. I can go down the list. When I got into Munchers, that was United, Mickey Lee, Lauren Reed, just all of these amazing people that I was just blessed to work with good people. I wasn't the smartest, guy in the class. I was just, I was the biggest sponge and tried to learn as much as I could. And so, starting Large Loss Mastery later on, in 2015 and 16, it's never been about, I'm the master. I'm simply the messenger of that past, of the best practices, of everything that we learned, over the years, and all those great people that I worked with, the way that I can show them appreciation and love for what they did for me is to continue to teach what they taught me to the younger generation, to the next group that will sit up here 40 years from now and have a conversation like Javi and I are doing right now. And so, Javi, tell me about when you first got started, and then I'll come back to my nonsense. And so, what are some of your first job? What was, because I'll tell you about mine after you tell me yours. But what was your first job like?
My first job, again, it was in carpet cleaning. It was well, I'll tell you how it all happened. So I had a good friend of mine who just happened to, he kind of was a wheel and deal type guy. And he had a friend of his that worked at a bank. And his friend called him up one day and said, "Hey, I've got 2 carpet cleaning machines that are sitting right here at the bank that we repoed. Would you be interested in them?" So my buddy looks over at me and he goes, "Hey, what about getting a couple of these portable carpet cleaning machines? I can pick them up cheap and we can go ahead and start a carpet cleaning company." Well, I said, I don't know anything about that. What do we do? So we go pick up the machines. We print up some flyers. We go hand them out here and there. And we did 2 jobs. And they were for friends, and didn't know what we were doing. We had called around, and someone had told us where the plug went and where the hose went and what you were supposed to do with the wand. And we went out and made a couple of attempts. Well, after those 2 jobs that we did, we kind of figured, this isn't for us. Why don't we just go ahead and sell the equipment? Well, so I loaded up the 2 machines, put them in the bed of my truck, drove them to a gentleman that was advertising carpet cleaning in one of the shopper's guides, and pulled up in front of his shop and showed him the machines. And he came out and said, why would you want to sell these 2 machines and you've got a truck? I said, we've made an attempt to go out and clean, and it's just not working. Like, we don't have a clue of what we're doing. And he said, well, I've got a better offer for you. He said, I'll buy one of the machines, and then why don't you come to work for me as a subcontractor, and I'll teach you everything you need to know and put you to work. And so I said, well, I don't have a job as we're speaking. I'm going to school. I was going to a junior college, and he said, yeah, just come work. Meet me here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. I showed up there the next day. We went out to a vacant house, and he said, okay, I'm going to walk you through the step by step. And that was the start of a long life career. And you know what? It worked. And I was with him for 2 years, and then he moved me into management. And I started, that's when I decided, hey, I've got to get a little bit more education. And he actually paid for my very first IICRC carpet cleaning course. And that was done over at Dalworth Carpet Cleaning. And had a great conversation with Dalworth Carpet Cleaning, and ended up going to work for Dalworth Carpet Cleaning as a carpet repair and commercial carpet cleaning manager. And it kind of just took off from there. That's how it started anyway.
No, that's awesome, brother. And for me, it was a college. I was in college, and I was doing asbestos abatement. And so during college, I had my own apartment and everything, and I was doing asbestos abatement. And back in the 80s, before mold was gold in the 90s, it was asbestos. And all of the government buildings in the United States had to have asbestos removed. And so huge. Think about that as a just an unbelievable. And so I was just a kid in college, but I was back then making $25 an hour in 1984 and 85. And so I would make enough money during the summer to pay for my school, my apartment, and my life. And so I was like, woo,
Absolutely.
So I was a kid with the apartment, but I had all my rooms rented out. Each room was rented out. In fact, I had a walk-in closet at one time that was rented out also, I think, for $50 a month. And so I got somebody living in my closet. But it's a long story. But anyway, I was always good at project management. And we had some of the guys that we were doing asbestos abatement went to work for this company called MF Bank, the restoration company. And specifically, Banks Environmental is what it was at the time. It was around just for a little while. And this was in 85-ish. And I was always good at project management, always good at managing people, always good at managing time, and always good at communicating. And so these guys are like, hey, Tom, you got to come on. You got to come with us. This fire water damage restoration. And I was like, what?
It's foreign language.
I was like, what is fire and water damage restoration? Yeah. Because back then, actually, I wasn't the only one. In fact, today, you can actually, some people outside of our industry don't even realize that this is actually a business. In fact, my family for years, actually, I think some of my family still to this day, they don't know what the heck I actually do. And so next thing you knew, I went from, I was in Las Vegas at the time. I was going to school in Las Vegas and living in Las Vegas. And next thing you know, I was in Dallas, Texas with a dry sponge in my hand. And I was on a fire damage in a small factory, in a little metal building, maybe 20,000 square feet. And, metal, when those uninsulated metal buildings that you're cleaning now with a dry sponge, it's miserable. And I found out what fire and water damage was, because here I am with a dry sponge in my hand going, dang, what what am I doing here? And been in the business ever since. And that's the one thing about our business. As much as things have changed, you can go on a fire damage job today, and there's going to be somebody cleaning the wall with a dry sponge. As much as the industry has changed, it's really the same. We're still drying, cleaning, demoing. Nothing has really changed all that much. Just, the technology, some of, our software, all of that, but we're still, still sucking up water. You're still pulling carpet. You're still, things haven't changed that much. So for the younger generation, this isn't the first time this stuff has been done.
It's funny that you said that, because I just heard someone at a conference recently say our industry is one of the few industries that very seldom over decades of time ever reinvents the wheel.
No, there's no, yeah.
It's still, you can always revert back to the basics, and the basics still work and are still very well respected, in the cleaning and restoration. Just go back to your basics. It's soil and source removal, yep. And then, and rectify, yep. So it's common sense. It's common sense.
It really is. And I think sometimes, I get a kick out of, I'll read stuff, posts on Facebook, and, somebody will post, a job like it's the greatest job that's ever been done. And it's like, okay, that's been done before.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good for you, but it has been done before, and it'll be done again in the future. And that's the beautiful thing about what we do is the best practices are the same. If you're doing things right, the right things are going to happen. You're going to get the right results. And you're always going to find yourself in the right spot. Now, we have to deal with insurance companies and get it paid and all that kind of stuff. And that's the part that sucks about our business. But the work itself and doing good work, helping people, keeping businesses in operation after disasters have happened, keeping people in their homes. That's why we're in business. That's what this is all about, is keeping the business flowing, keeping people in their homes, keeping people employed. Sometimes, you get into those widespread events and you're in a factory and everybody works in that factory.
Yeah.
So everybody that's in that small community, their livelihood relies on the recovery process and how we do it. And so it's very important that we're efficient, that we care, and that we're doing things the way they should be, and that we're getting them done so that we're moving on. We can get things done and get them back in business as quickly as possible, or back in their home.
No, absolutely. That when we mobilize and we go to a CAT situation, or even if it is, a residential home that's a family or friend or someone in the community, it's always about a sense of urgency, mm-hmm. Empathy, and making sure that we deliver a product that can turnkey that project as quick as possible, because it's about that dwelling, the people, the families that are in there, or the community. When you get into a box store retail, they always say, there's two stores that are most important, mm-hmm. aside from the hospitals and the senior livings. So we know that those are occupied, and we need to keep those as functional as possible. But, that everyone always points to the Walmart type mm-hmm. facilities, because they need to feed and take care of everybody in the community. We need those stores open as quick as possible. And then you have the Home Depots and the Lowe's and the hardware stores that, are going to be your suppliers for rebuilding, and so it's very important, that once you get power, and sometimes, it may be temporary power, but let's get those places open to where the community and the families that are in that community can go on about their regular lives, and then, once everybody kind of stabilizes, of course, the second vision should be to get the schools open. We got to get the kids back in the schools, but there's so many different things that you and I have seen, Tom, and in going to these CAT events and these different types of losses. Of course, we all know that Katrina was probably the worst thing that any of us could have seen or been involved with. And, for an entire city or community to just be at a complete total loss, there was very little that was salvageable at that point. I know we all went in and made attempts, but it was more, at that point, it was more of a demolition and rebuild type situation. There wasn't a lot to drive, but what was there, we all, pitched in and did what we could. And I think that's how we kind of look at things. There's enough work for everybody. I know we haven't had a real hurricane or a storm CAT event that everyone's really gone out to and hasn't pulled together. But at the same time, things are evolving. Maybe not internally from our execution, but things are evolving on the construction side. There's stronger roofs, stronger windows. Sooner or later they're saying, Florida's going to be bulletproof, hurricane proof, but every storm's different,
Well, there is a little bit of that now, and we've seen it in with Ian. And then, a lot of the other stuff that's happened in Florida with the condo collapse and all that. Now you can't get into the building sometimes without it getting approved by engineering.
Oh yeah.
Prior to, and then the HOAs have to figure out how they're going to pay for everything before they let anybody in. And so it's a lot of what was, a lot of the fun is being taken out of our business in a lot of ways because of all the bureaucracy that's happened. But then again, you have the building structures, and they're stronger than they were. So that, but the one thing is we're still seeing wind-driven rain, no matter how tight they build a building. They still haven't built a window or a sliding glass door that in one way or another doesn't, with the strength of the hurricane and the duration of the time of the hurricane, doesn't affect the windows and the doors of some type and give that wind-driven rain. And even, so the buildings that we've seen on the coast here that are, fortified, there's still water intrusion that's going to happen. And there's still going to be that need for us. And so, it's just not as I guess I don't want to say as easy as it used to be for us, because it used to be you come in and it was rock and roll. And now, you have, especially here in Florida, HOAs are, and everybody loves to work for HOAs and not said nobody. And, but it's what we have to do in our business. But, so what's one of your favorite projects, Javi, over the years that you tell us about?
I've done so many different things in my career. I started out on the cleaning side, like I said. So there were a lot of projects back in the day that I still have on my resume that I really, really, I feel good about. I think those projects back then, before I got really knee deep into restoration, I was kind of like you, I had the mold days, so I did a lot of mold. I did a lot of specialty drying, there in Dallas, Fort Worth, we've got a lot of crawl spaces. So that was where the fun, you had to get creative. You had to figure things out. We didn't have the access to the desiccants, especially for residential products and crawl spaces, so we use a lot of the push pull system, air in, air out, moisture, so, one of the, well, I tell you what, something just came to mind. As I got all my certifications early in my career, one of the certifications that I had taken at a place called Cobb Carpet Supply, and Tony Romeo from Aramsco was who had signed me up for the class. And he said, Javier, you need to take the carpet dyeing class. And I said, I'm not into doing apartments. I really don't see where it's going to fit. He said, I promise you, you'll need it not only for your master you'll need it down the road. So I go take this carpet down class. Well, lo and behold, I became a carpet inspector shortly after that. And, learning and already understanding the dye lots and carpet installs and defects, whether it was the manufacturer, the distributor, or the installer. I would go do all these carpet inspections. I was working for 3M DuPont, if you remember.
Yep.
Foley's and Sanger Harris, Dillard's at that point.
Yep.
Back in the day, were selling carpet. So I was hired to do inspections for them. Well, at one point, I had gotten a call about doing a carpet inspection that no one could facilitate the need to go out and make sure that it stood up in court. And I got invited to go to the Disney property in California.
Mm-hmm.
Had never traveled for work. This was one of the first times. So I ended up going out to Disney in California, and the carpet inspection there was a janitorial girl that had walked through one of the Disney executive offices and had dripped some bleach on a Disney pattern carpet that was in this facility. So they said that the carpet alone was worth about $200,000 because of specialty dyed and so forth and so forth. So they had asked what their options were. So I made a phone call to the rep that had contacted me to go out there. And I said, there's only going to be one way to fix this carpet, and that's to re-dye every single thing, neutralize it and re-dye every single little speck. They said, well, who would you recommend? And I said, I can't recommend anybody, but I could give it a shot. And they're like, okay, well, could you come up with a price? So I shot them a low price. I think I wanted like $1,200 to do it. He said, no, what we're going to charge them is we're going to charge them a third of the cost of the value. I thought that was unreal. But of course, this is back in the 90s. So, I'm sitting here going, so we're going to charge these people like $80,000 for me to go in and touch up these paint spots, these bleach spots. So they gave me the green light. So I couldn't get the dyes to match the colors the way I needed them to. So they shipped me a 120 different color permanent marker set. And I got on my hands and knees and laid on that carpet. And for 3 nights, I was out there coloring these spots by hand. And I invoiced them $80,000. And I touched up that carpet. But when I finished, I got a high five. They signed off on it. I saved that carpet. So that right there, that was a story somebody brought back to my attention. I'd almost forgot about that story. But that was a big golden medal for me at that point in time. That was one of my proudest moments.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, I love it.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I think one of mine is early on in my career, in the first few years of my career, we spent a lot of time in New York City, and so this would have been 1986-ish. Somewhere in there, and maybe 87, and MTV had a fire. And back in that part of the 80s, MTV was like really cool.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, it was amazing. We were also doing a project down in Brooklyn at a bank down in an old historic bank, which is a beautiful building. Down in Brooklyn, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but we were up in downtown New York. We're actually uptown on 58th, somewhere down there, and at the MTV offices. And on every desk, that it was the executive offices, so they all had the MTV Spaceman, that kind of stuff. Yep. And that's where Astro comes from. I should have Astro out here, but oh well. And so during that time, I mean, there were like rock stars coming in and out of there because they were also, filming there, and they were doing contracts and stuff. And so, it was, you name it. I think Kiss was there one day. We had U2, we had, Madonna. There was all these people. I was like, and here we are. We're cleaning, so we're like, we're not even being noticed, and we're just like, wow, this is unbelievable. And one weekend we were off on a Sunday, and we went down to the World Trade Center, and I was with a buddy of mine, and we're standing in Battery Park, and we're we're looking up at the trade centers, and it's like, man, what if? What if? Wouldn't that be an amazing job? The MTV job, that was a fire. We were cleaning up after a fire, and we were down at the World Trade Center looking up, go, man, what if? We went up on top on the observation, used to be right on platform, right on top of the World Trade Centers, right above the windows on the World, which was the restaurant, was on top there. And we were like, man, what if? This would be an amazing project. And so this was 1987. And that was where, you see my T-shirts where I say, what if, how much, how long? That's where this comes from. And because 6 years later, the first bomb on the World Trade Centers occurred in 1993, in February of 1993, and next thing you know, that was our project, and we were there. And that project is still, one of still the largest project ever done. There's only one building on Earth that's bigger than the World Trade Centers at 8.8 million square feet. And we did it in 16 days. And so there will be a project that will be bigger than that 8.8 million square feet one day. But it won't be done in 16 days. No. We had 4,000 people a day. My end of it was safety, but we had just the crew, we had Joey Taylor, Bill Boss, those were, heading up everything, Nancy Leo, Brad Key, just the list of superstars that were on that job. I was blessed, to be part of them. I handled the safety with Vernon Duty, and giving everybody a shout out. And then I stayed and did the hotel, which was the Vista Hotel. It was the Marriott Hotel when the towers came down in 9/11. But that was just an amazing, and I wish for all the restorers out there, I could send you like a little bottle that you could open it up and go, ah. And it still gives me goosebumps to this day, that project. And it's probably my time in New York City, those first few years, because New York is a challenge to do business in New York. Right. But after you get used to it and you start acting like you live there, it's not too bad. But the World Trade Center in 93, still, one of the, I can't believe it's been that long already, but still one of my highlights.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because one of the things that I had gotten into around that same era was we were doing a lot of the ultrasonic cleaning.
Yep.
And I was working with Marantz.
Yep.
Remember?
Yep.
So Lisa Marantz, his daughter, I was working with her on some training, and she had it was a small facility in Dallas where they were kind of selling and training and doing some things there. So the Marantz facility was there. Yep. And then Bob Allen and Melinda Allen that sat on the board for ASCAR, which was RIA now.
Yep.
But Bob and Melinda were handling fire and smoke and consulting. And so I kind of got pulled in with them. And as 9/11 happened, a lot of the computers and electronics that had the blowout from the smoke, yep, miles away,
yep,
they were other offices and yep, buildings and hotels and medical facilities. A lot of these electronics got shipped to the Marantz and to Bob and Melinda.
Yep.
And I actually got to clean some of the electronics on the ultrasonic machines. And once we got it cleaned and salvaged, and we would ship everything back to New York. And so I think we all played a part in some form or fashion, to kind of help rebuild that very, very bad moment in history.
And we came back, and once when 9/11 happened, that was when I was with Munters at that time. And I spent 16 years with Munters, working with Mickey Lee and Lauren Reed and just another amazing group of people. That taught me just everything, about drying and dry air and all this, stuff. And and things that, are now just best practices and are built into the IRCRC standards and everything. And, and coming back to the World Trade Center on 9/11 was disturbing. And we were in buildings that were around, and we were also doing stock certificates for Merrill Lynch and recovering, some very, very high level security. You couldn't move without a security person beside you. None of your people worked. You had to have all of it. Everybody had to be FBI clearance and everything. And so just, it was surreal coming back, because I was actually in a building where we had our party after we finished in 93. We had a big party up there, and we were looking out at the trade centers and just go, man, I'm going to work for this company for the rest of my life, and I went from there to Kuwait City after the Iraqi war, and after the oil fires were all out, and we were doing some consulting work over there. And that's a whole nother podcast all by itself. My time in Kuwait, we made a video and all kinds of swear. Yeah. So if you guys see me out, ask me about that sometime. It's an amazing, probably a hobby. The thing for me, it goes by so fast. I mean, it's just like 40 years, brother, 40 years in May. And it just goes by so fast. And it's, so, the one thing that I can tell everybody is make sure while you're traveling and you're doing all these projects, make sure you take some time to smell the roses, go do some local stuff, eat some local food, because the one thing, and hobbies here at my house here, and it's all this stuff that I've collected from all over the place, and it all because it matters later in life. So make sure you're enjoying, no matter what life you are, what business you're in, make sure you enjoy what you're doing, and that you're, because when you get to I'll be 62 in a few days. I can't believe it. I still don't believe it. I feel like I still feel 42, whatever. It matters. It matters, because you'll look back and you'll say, man, that was awesome. You'll always have a story with everything that happened in your life. But the only problem with that is it goes by so fast.
It does. I look back at, how quick everything's gone. The last company I was with them for 25 years. And, of course, now I'm with HYCO and been with HYCO another year, it's just flown by. And, you're right. If you can't get up and love what you do, you're doing the wrong thing, and, I get up every day and sometimes lay awake at night, but it's always because, I want to be able to figure out what I'm going to do to be productive. I've got my checklist that I'm going to go through daily and make sure that I accomplish what I set out to do and that I'm productive. But the one thing is, you got to do it with heart and a smile on your face.
Yep.
That's 100%. That should be a law. If you're going to get in restoration, you just got to love it. Again, there's just not enough hours in the day to accomplish what we need to do in this industry, and you got to get up and just hit the ground running. And it's a new adventure every day. That's for damn sure.
Yep. Because in the end, it's not about what you did. It's about how you did it.
Yeah.
And leave a footprint. Leave something behind, and be as positive as possible. And Javi and I are getting ready to work on. We've got a big class coming up in in May on our anniversary. We decided it was purely by accident. We didn't work it out that way, but we're going to have a large loss mastery class at Javi's place in Indianapolis at the HYCO. HYCO is going to be hosting, and we're going to be there May 12th through the 14th. And it's going to be, it's our hybrid class because this year we're doing our loss mastery series, which includes residential, commercial, and large loss. And so everything. And so again, I've been surrounded by the best people throughout my career. And so I'm continuing to surround myself with people who know more than I do or know residential better than I do. I'm a commercial guy. And so I've surrounded myself with experts that can help restorers, no matter what type of business that you're in, whether you're doing residential or commercial, doesn't matter. If you're doing residential right, you're going to do commercial right. The client is different. You know, there's a difference between the owner of the business and the owner of the house, but you're still performing the job the same way. And so join us May 12th through the 14th, and we're going to finish it off on the 12th through the 14th. On the 15th is HYCO's party, year anniversary party, and Javi, tell them all about that. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing about Tom's class, you know, and I know that I've spent the past 2 weeks just traveling the country. I was at 4 other conferences, big conferences, and that topic about Tom's class, a large loss mastery class, came up. And if you haven't done that class, you need to be there. They're going to be assessing a makeshift loss at the Lucas oil field, which is where the Indianapolis Colts host their NFL season. So that's going to be a big wow factor for if you have a chance to attend the class and get that life experience. But like Tom said, you know, we'll do the class from the 12th to the 14th. And then the evening of the 14th, we'll actually have a happy hour for the people that are arriving for the HYCO. It's the 4th annual The Experience, which we put this event on to kind of give back to our strategic partners and the people that utilize our services for large loss labor. If you have a chance to sign up, you can go to our website, or else we'll be posting both for Tom's class and for the HYCO experience, and anyone and everyone's invited to come. There'll be probably some of the largest and most well-known business owners in the restoration industry will be there attending. And we're putting this event on at the Indianapolis 500 Speedway. And we're actually, we have a pavilion that's reserved with a glass front. And that is race week, and the Indy cars will be doing their practice runs. So as we're doing the conference, we'll call it a conference, the experience for HYCO, we'll have sponsors and people that you can talk with and network. And then again, some big names in the restoration industry will be there. We'll have speakers. There'll be food, drinks, hors d'oeuvres. It doesn't cost you anything, but just the money to get there. Or again, if you have the luxury of hitting the class, then you get 2 events for one. Do the class, the 12th through the 14th, and then join us all for the celebration at the Speedway on the 15th. And again, we'll be posting over the next 45 days on the how to RSVP for both of the events. So hope to see y'all there.
Very good. No, it's going to be a blast. Make sure that you sign up, join us. It's going to be an awesome time. You will not be disappointed. Javi, it has been awesome, my brother.
Always, my brother.
And beautiful day here in Florida. We're going to call it, but thank you very much, everybody. Javi, we'll see you soon, my friend.
Absolutely.
We'll see everybody in May in Indianapolis, May 12th through the 14th, topped off on the 15th with the HYCO experience. You're going to love it. And we cannot wait to see you. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Conversations on the Edge with Tom and TJ. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And if you like what you hear, leave us a review. Join us next time for another Conversation on the Edge.